Hit subscribe to the DIY Writer to support your hardworking authors and also lessen your chances of ending up as a victim in their next book. The world's largest UFO conference, Contact in the Desert, announces the launch of their 8th annual and very first virtual event. This event is focusing on UFOs and the year of science, also consciousness and the future. This will be held June 24th to 28th, 2021. Contact in the Desert is renowned for its top lineup of experts in the fields of ufology, forbidden archaeology, government disclosure, alien phenomenon, crop circles, and much more. Contact in the Desert already is the largest UFO conference in history and will now be the largest UFO conference in the virtual world, with over 60 lectures, 40 workshops, 11 panels, featured speakers presentations, virtual tours to Giant Rock, and other interactive events. Go to contactinthedesert.com for more information and get your tickets now. This is Jeff Bacon with the DIY Writer Podcast. Today, we have John Coon. John Coon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Jeff. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
No problem. So you've got 4 books out there right now, and a 5th one coming out in July, right?
Yep, I'm pretty excited about it. The 5th one coming out in July is called Dark Metamorphosis, and it's the 2nd one in the series that I've been working on. The first one was Alien People, which came out last September, and then I will have a 3rd one for a complete trilogy coming out sometime summer or fall of 2022.
Can you give us an idea what Alien People's all about?
So Alien People is kind of a unique take on the First Contact story.
Okay.
It's about a alien astronomer from a planet called Lathos named Calandra Menankar, who discovers a probe that enters their solar system, and the probe is from Earth.
Okay.
And it contains a message of peace in the probe, and so she, along with her boyfriend X-Drugan, who's a master pilot within the Stellar Guard, which is their nation's military, essentially. They mount an expedition to go from Lathos to Earth to make first contact.
Okay.
And it doesn't turn out as well as they'd hope, as you can imagine. But the Alien People is basically looking at a first contact situation with Earth from the aliens' point of view. And I thought that'd be something that'd be interesting. You know, because usually you have it from the Earth perspective, and
right.
The aliens are kind of like this mysterious unknown entity, and you know that you've seen like dozens and dozens of stories that way. I thought it'd be fun to go the other route and have the Earth be kind of the unknown entity.
That is kind of fun. Unfortunately, they're going to find out Earthlings are kind of assholes, so that's
Oh, and they find out very quickly. The Earth sending a message of peace doesn't mean Earth people are very peaceful at all.
The people that did the sending aren't the people that are going to form the peace, I would guess. Yeah, NASA, those silly guys. Anyway, that's kind of funny. So then this is going to be a trilogy then.
Yeah, and the second one is called Dark Metamorphosis, and it picks up 1 year after Alien People, and it kind of deals with the fallout and aftermath of that initial expedition, what impact it has on the protagonists of the previous story, and that they find themselves embroiled in a dark conspiracy that threatens their lives back on their home planet. And it's going to be a very fun, interesting, unexpected turn in the story.
Oh, cool!
I'm pretty excited for people to be able to read it. It'll be out mid-July.
Okay.
On Amazon and other major booksellers.
All right. You're wide, right? So you
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I make it a point to distribute to every bookseller and retailer possible.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's quite a few indie authors out there that just, they do Kindle Unlimited exclusive to Amazon. And I kind of feel like you're cutting off some of your audience when you do that, because there are people that, like to get their books on, say, Apple or Google or at a traditional bookseller like Barnes and Noble or Books a Million. And so you want to give them an opportunity to be able to read your book and get your book
Right.
without having to go to Amazon to do it.
So do you use a service to do that? Do you use like Draft to Digital or something like that? Or how do you do it? Do you go to each one and post your own book?
I do Draft to Digital for a few of them. So when I do paperbacks, I go through Ingram Spark and the Amazon directly. And then for ebooks, I do directly through Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Google, Apple Books, Kobo, and then I'll do Draft to Digital for basically the rest of the smaller ones, where it just be kind of time consuming to try and upload on every one of them.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that do everything except for Apple Books, and they let Draft to Digital deal with Apple because they're kind of hard to get along with.
Apple products in general are kind of an interesting animal.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. That's a nice way of putting it.
I used to, when I worked as a sports journalist at the Deseret News, I used to have a company laptop that was a
Macintosh?
Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an Apple computer, and I had so many issues with it. I was always taking it into the IT guys and saying, "Hey, can you fix this? Can you fix that?" I mean, literally, like every month there was some new glitch with it.
Well, I've got an Apple right next to me, and I bought it for a specific purpose just because I love vellum, to do my book formatting and everything. And I use it for that and a few other things. And I've never had an issue with it, but I just every now and then I'll type on it, like I'll write on it, instead of writing on my my PC. But I can't say I've ever had a problem with this one. I've had all sorts of people. I'm an IT guy, so they bring in their Apple and it's just totally destroyed, or they did something to it. Or Apple just doesn't quite understanding what you want, so they get the frowny face. But I don't know. I think it depends on what you get used to. But I do like Apple. The people that are really tied to Apple, how they just tout that, oh my gosh, these things are bulletproof. I mean, it works so good. And then they come slinking into my office. My Apple broke. Uh-oh. How is that possible?
They work great until they don't.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing with PCs. It's just that more people know how to fix a PC.
Well, like I had a brother-in-law who just swore by Dell computers. And I kid you not, every time I've ever gotten a Dell laptop, it is crapped out within 2 years of the purchase. Usually right around the time the warranty expires on it, then it becomes a paperweight.
Truth be told, I don't think that Lenovo, HP, I honestly, it used to be you could buy a computer and be like 5-6 years before I had to worry about it. And I'm hard pressed to say that that a computer lasts any longer than its warranty anymore. Really, maybe a couple of years.
The cynical side of me says that the reason for that is that if they have long-lasting, durable computers, then people are buying fewer computers over a period of time, and so they would rather sell a larger quantity than a higher quality. And I mean, it's all about the bottom line and, the shareholders getting the most bang for their buck. And so higher volume of sales is going to trump quality every time. I mean, it's a cynical point of view, but I kind of feel like that's why you've seen computers go from lasting 5 or 6 years down to maybe lasting 1 or 2 before you have to replace them.
Well, There's another theory about it, is that your computer from 5 years ago can't run today's software, because the software is advancing so much faster and it needs more and more, or so fast. I mean, they program themselves outside of the parameters of the hardware quite often, so I mean, something that's supposed to work on, not Windows 7 anymore, but an earlier version of Windows, um, no longer does, because they don't have the memory capabilities or the, storage or the certain type of, whatever graphics they need or whatever. And so, there's another theory where the hardware manufacturers said, fine, we'll make cheaper, faster computers and they'll last just as long as the damn software doesn't upgrade. And then once it does, you have to buy a new one anyway. So why don't we just make some money on it? But, who knows?
That's possible. It's a combination of both, honestly. The profits and just tech advance, and
they're not in business not to make a profit. So
exactly,
those shareholders need their stuff. So what else you got going on? What other projects are you doing?
So I mean, in addition to finishing out the trilogy for the Alien People Chronicles, I've just been working on a couple of follow-ups to my first novel, Pandora Reborn. I have a very extensive fictional world within that setting that I haven't even scratched the surface on. I just got that book, and then I did a little ghost story for Kindle Unlimited about a year or so ago, and I really want to get back into that fictional world, and that's kind of based on monsters and magic and some different types of horror tropes.
Well, tell me about the book.
So Pandora Reborn it's really a fascinating one. It takes place in a small fictional Colorado town called Deer Falls, and Deer Falls is basically this nexus of, one of the characters in there describes it as a nexus of supernatural weirdness. There's a lot of monsters and ghosts and witches and all sorts of, dark things that are below the surface there. Well, anyway, the main character of Pandora Reborn is a teenage boy named Ron Olson. He moves into the town with his newly divorced mom and his younger brother from Denver, and he's really upset. He's a high school soccer player. He's been playing with an elite club in Denver, and he's basically going to this little hick town where they don't have a good soccer team. His friends aren't there anymore. His dad's not there, and so he's really upset about his situation. And shortly after he moves into the town, other students start dying and disappearing mysteriously. Okay. And it's traced back to a buried chest that had been uncovered. And inside the chest is an disembodied ancient witch. And when she's released, she begins wreaking havoc on the town. And she'd actually been guarded for 55 years, because 55 years earlier she'd been released from that chest and had caused a whole lot of death and destruction within the town. And so once they discovered this has happened, then he's made in the town, Casey and Christina and Cassandra need to find a way to stop this disembodied ancient witch and return her to the chest where she's imprisoned before she takes over the town and destroys it.
Very cool.
It kind of plays off of the slasher archetypes. I had fun taking stock characters from slasher movies and kind of turning them in different directions. And I also worked in a little bit of mythology into the mix, as evidence from the title Pandora Reborn and kind of the central conceit of the box or chest. that gets open and releases evil. It kind of plays off that Pandora box myth a little bit.
Okay. So this is something that you're going to kind of build a series out of because you like the world?
Yeah. This is something where I've got tons of different ideas involving different characters and monsters. And I've actually started working on a sequel. The current draft I've only got like a couple pages, but the sequel takes place 5 years later, involving Ron's younger brother, and he has to combat a new principal who's, for lack of a better way of putting it, is quite evil and is trying to gather up powers so that he can basically enslave the entire world.
Oh.
And so there's pretty bad stakes involved, and he's still feeling a little bit of trauma from the events of the previous book 5 years earlier. And so that's on the docket right now. And then I have a second like parallel sequel that involves Ron and kind of follows up on his story 5 years later as well. And I look to do that one sometime next year or 2023.
So how does that differ from like, so you have that other book, Under a Fallen Sun. Is that kind of the same type of world, or is this something completely different?
So Under a Fallen Sun is sci-fi. Interestingly, Under a Fallen Sun is actually connected to the same fictional world as Alien People.
Oh, okay.
It's actually more or less a prelude to Alien People, because one of the key characters in Alien People is actually a main character in Under a Fallen Sun. And so Under a Fallen Sun kind of introduces a couple of concepts that I expand on in Alien People, but the central premise of that one is 4 college students are on a road trip from Louisiana to Las Vegas for spring break, and their car breaks down in West Texas, and they become trapped in a small town in West Texas that's been invaded by aliens.
Oh.
Who are doing genetic experimentation on the population. And so they have to find a way to A, get out of the town before they get killed, and B, stop the aliens from gaining a foothold and taking over Earth. A lot for college students to do on a spring break.
So the aliens, are they from the CDC? No, just kidding.
they have some methods that the CDC would blush at.
Oh, is that reading? That'd be reading spreadsheets and getting the data wrong. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so you have this other book. Let's talk about your 4th book real quick. In Hell's Shadow. How's that one tie in? Or is it just
okay? So that one ties into the Pandora Reborn universe, the Deer Falls universe. Just peripherally, it takes place within the same fictional universe, but it's actually kind of just a one-off ghost story. It's a cool little story that I came up with when I lived in Houston about 20 years ago. I got in a car accident while driving on a dark road during a foggy night, and my car got totaled, and so I didn't have a car for like a month while it was getting repaired. And you don't have a car, it's stuck in what you can do and where you can go, and especially at night in a place like Houston. And so I got the idea to write about a story about a character who gets in a car accident and they get stranded in the mountains and then end up in this mysterious, spooky cabin. And it's a fun little ghost story. I really enjoyed writing it. It's kind of a moody, atmospheric type piece. And
cool.
And I put it out on Kindle Unlimited to kind of test out Kindle Unlimited and see if it was worth pursuing that avenue for publication. And
What'd you think?
I'm not really high on Kindle Unlimited.
Really?
Like most of my sales for that book came through actual like sales and not page reads.
Mm-hmm.
If it were just page reads, I got like the equivalent of like 4 book sales in page reads.
Oh wow.
And it's just like it's not worth it.
So I'm kind of curious. Do you do any advertising with Amazon?
I do it their Amazon AMS ads.
Yeah.
I run those for Alien People at the moment, and I've run them in the past for Pandora Reborn. And I tend to focus on kind of the introductory books.
Sure.
That introduce you to the universe. They're kind of central to the universe, and then my hope is that they'll see the other books that are related, and they'll branch off and look at them and read them after reading the introductory one.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sucking on a cough drop. For those who don't know, I have a bad cough today, so I'm really struggling here, but that's okay. I'm kind of curious about your process now. For anybody who's read your bio or knows a little bit about you, you're also a journalist.
Yeah.
So that's your day job, but your true love is being a fiction author. What's the difference between journalism and fiction? I mean, in your writing process. I mean, is that what am I trying to ask here? You know what I'm trying to get to, though. I mean, you can sit down and you can write facts, and then you have to, maybe draw some conclusions, or I mean, depending on what kind of report you're doing, whether it be on sports or whatever it is that you write, versus sitting down and writing true fiction. I mean, can you kind of the differences between that? I mean,
well, I mean, like obviously with journalism, you have to kind of stick to what you observe and the story that's at hand. You can't really, I mean, if you're a good journalist, that is, you can't really fudge the facts. And
and I understand that. I mean, it would be different if you're a nonfiction writer.
You're not like your creative voice, I guess the way I would put it is your creative voice is channeled in a different way with journalism. Like you're focused on like a specific event, a specific type of story, where with fiction, it's pretty much your imagination is the limit. I mean, you kind of sit there and think about the story and think about the characters and ponder over kind of what's going on, and then you decide what do I focus on, what do I put on the page, what do I share with the readers.
Mm-hmm. But there's that part of journalism where you have to make the article interesting, just because you have a bunch of facts. Yeah. You're the writer makes the difference between, you can have 2 journalists reporting on the same exact story. One article be, just rocking, and the other one be like, oh my God, it's like listening to Ben Stein and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, type stuff. And so, I mean, you still have to have some sort of, you have to still be a wordsmith, and you have to be able to,
Certainly. It's, I mean, you still have to use creativity. You still have to know how to construct a story. And that is a parallel between fiction writing and journalism, is that you do have to know how to construct a story, how to figure out what's most relevant, what's most interesting to your audience, how to speak to your audience. Because you're right, if you just regurgitate a bunch of facts like you're writing an encyclopedia article, nobody's going to want to read it. Nobody's going to care.
Right.
But if you draw out the story behind the facts and tell people, hey, this is why this matters, this is why you should care about it, this is why you should be interested in it, then you kind of accomplish the purpose that you need to as a journalist, to not only engage but to inform.
Okay.
And there's some similarities with fiction writing in that regard, in the fact that you want your readers to care. You want to construct your story in a way that it engages them and gives them a reason to turn from page 1 to page 2.
Yeah. So what do you find easier, journalism or writing fiction? I'm just curious, asking for a friend.
Writing fiction's a lot easier for me. And I say that because I guess it's more rewarding. I feel like there's no constraints when I write fiction. Like I mentioned earlier, the only limitation is your own imagination.
Right. Okay.
And so, I mean, as long as you can have the ability to come up with a story, it's just fun to be able to put that story on paper and bring those characters to life and share all that stuff that's swimming around in your head with other people. I mean, that I get a thrill out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Where journalism, it's fun in spots, but it's like any other job. You have your days where you're stressed out, where you're worn out, where you just think, oh my gosh, if I look at another player dribbling a basketball or throwing a football, I'm going to go crazy. But, then you can turn around like the next day and be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I got to cover this. I got to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't get that same vibe with fiction writing. I get more of a positive, upbeat vibe on a consistent basis with fiction writing. It's fun, basically, instead of feeling like a job or a chore.
Yeah. So do you write short stories too? I see you wrote one.
Yeah, and I have plans to write others. I'm just trying to figure out the best medium for them. And I mean, I've actually got several completed short story manuscripts. They're ready to go as soon as I can figure out like the best venue and the best medium for them. Mm-hmm. Kindle Unlimited wasn't what I hoped and expected it to be, so I'm searching for other avenues at the moment.
Yeah, my experience, I'm in Kindle Unlimited, and I'm still waiting for the moment where I quit all advertising again for May, and I'm just letting things kind of settle down. And if the book keeps on selling there, then I might reactivate my my advertising. But if it drops down to nothing, I'm gonna take those puppies wide as soon as I can. Once I get out of the little 3-month time period, and I think that's probably the way to go. The more I look at it, and some people absolutely disagree with me, and I'm fine with that. Whatever works for you, but I'm really kind of tired of. It seems like Amazon seems to make this big game out of it.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of see it that way too, and there's certain genres that seem like they're built for Kindle Unlimited. Where you've probably seen the glut of these different types of stories, like the reverse harem shifter romance story, or something like that. Or there's like a legion of them on Kindle Unlimited. They're doing great numbers, getting tons and tons and tons of page reads, ranked really high. But then there's other genres where it's like crickets. Nothing happens. And I think Kindle Unlimited tends to kind of skew what's truly actually popular in terms of fiction and literature, because, like I said, you have those genres that people are just like throwing stories out like crazy because they're popular there, but they're not necessarily popular stuff when they're put out wide. If that makes any sense.
It does. I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you. I haven't personally experienced it. I've heard other people say that kind of a thing, to whereas, if it's like you said, a paranormal romance, or, some sort of a uh, young adult type book or whatever. Those seem to do really well. Adult books with male protagonists, yeah, they do all right. It just depends on what market you're in, but it seems like a lot of people have infiltrated other genres that they don't really you know shouldn't probably be in their advertising, and they do quite well because they're just shifting those all over the place, and I just like you know but who knows, maybe I'm too much of a purist.
You want your horror to be horror, your sci-fi to be sci-fi, and your fantasy to be fantasy. And
I think it's funny that most horror writers don't mark it down as horror as their main genre. It starts off as thrillers, which is probably not incorrect, but I just think it's kind of funny that you can't just market horror and sell. It's got to be a thriller, and it's hard to market that kind of stuff, especially if you got some gore in there.
oh yeah, that's well, and there's like a huge stigma attached to horror, as I found out, marketing Pandora Reborn and In Hell's Shadow. If you say, "Oh, this is a horror story," people are like, "Oh, I hate horror. I don't want to read horror."
Well,
But it's funny when you mix in the other genres, suddenly people are like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds cool. I'll try test it out." And they don't realize they're reading a story that also has horror elements in it. Yeah, it might have thriller elements, it might have mystery elements, but it has definite horror elements. And the funny
I
thing,
blame Twilight
past that
because
stigma, they end up liking it.
I blame Twilight. Got everybody hooked on sparkly vampires with romance stories built into them.
Twilight messed things up for everybody.
They really did. It took nice, a horror genre and turned it into a love story. My gosh, that's just sick.
that's just Twilight's. I always joke Twilight is vampire propaganda.
It's vampire porn.
It's they're just trying to make vampires look like these nice, harmless little creatures that won't actually hurt you. It's like, no, give me a vampire story where they're an actual badass evil threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's better. That's exciting. That's scary. I mean, that's actual horror. This other gushy stuff, yeah, who wants it?
See, I like the vampires that are maybe anti-hero, or maybe yes, they have a tremendous dark side, and they also but they also can do good things, but usually for their own reasons. Very manipulative, very there's some stories out there like that, but the vampire's all out on his own. He's been alive for eons, and it's kind of like making a deal with the devil. He's going to get his due.
Yeah.
But it whatever he does may benefit you in the short term, but the long term you're going to get screwed, in that type of a thing.
Well, and it's more interesting when the characters are nuanced. When, like, the way I always approach villains within my stories and antagonists within my stories is I always look at it from their point of view as I'm developing the story, and my philosophy is everyone is the hero of their own story. A villain never sees themselves as the villain. There's always a justification for what they say and what they do. And when you take that kind of attitude and that approach, then you have a much more complex and interesting and nuanced villain.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it makes them a better or a better antagonist in the end, or a better anti-hero, or whatever direction you choose to go in with them, because you've taken that time to kind of get inside their head and see, why do they do this? Why are they acting this way? What's in it for them? What's their motivation? Rather than, oh, I'm evil just because the plot says I'm supposed to be.
Right. I like the immortals that have their own plan for what they need to do, and it serves their own purpose, and nobody has any idea what the hell that is. But in the meantime, some people get killed, some people are helped, but it's all within this master plan. I think that's a cool thing that not a lot of people do. But
and one fun thing actually is when you have the chance to take like a protagonist from a certain situation or story, and maybe you have a different story where they become the antagonist because of their goals and their aims, and how they kind of meet and conflict with the goals and aims of other characters within the later story.
right. So that's kind of like Danny LaRusso being the villain. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you take a different approach, like from Karate Kid to Cobra Kai, then suddenly Daniel LaRusso isn't such a Boy Scout or wonderful guy anymore.
Yeah. Just sitting there minding my own business. A guy like throws a hose on me in the toilet. And then his buddy comes and beats us up. I was laughing my butt off when I saw that. I'm like, oh, come on. You're the bad guy. Come on, Johnny. Johnny, sweep the leg.
But it's fun to see it from Johnny's point of view, because you realize, okay, he's a little more complex and nuanced than you gave him credit for being in the original movie.
Yeah, I actually think that's, I thought it was going to be really stupid, but I do think it's fairly interesting, especially for people that grew up in that era where those movies came out. I mean, everybody's doing crane technique, at school, but
exactly.
Whatever. All right. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say one of the funniest things I saw before they brought out Cobra Kai was they did like a mockumentary 30 ESPN type thing on the karate championships, and Daniel doing his crane kick and everything. That was hilarious. They're just like breaking it down and how it changed the sporting world, and it was very overly dramatic.
I didn't see that, but that sounds funny as, And the mastermind Miyagi behind this new critical move that everybody is trying in the karate championships. But I can see that. I'm kind of sick of myself not for thinking of that myself. I could have done that. Anyway. Any last thoughts on anything you want to share with your readers as we cut out of this?
So I was going to just show them like the book if they want to go check out Alien People. Here's the cover for everybody.
Can you back it up a little bit so they can see the whole? There you go. Yep.
And that's out in booksellers everywhere right now. You can get it in paperback and ebook. And the sequel, Dark Metamorphosis, will be out in mid-July, and it'll be available at every retailer as well. I should have a pre-order page up on Amazon and other retailers here within the next few days.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to pre-order an ebook, and then the ebook and paperback will be available roughly around the same time in mid-July.
Very cool. All right. Well, John, I want to thank you for your time today. I appreciate it very much. It was a great conversation.
Thank you for having me.
With that, I'm going to call this particular program to a close. I'm going to tell everybody I want you to have a great day. Keep your chin up, because everything is getting so much better, and hopefully there's no masks real quick. Anyway, have a good day.
Please hit the subscribe button. I get a bonus for every subscriber, and I only need 1,506 more to become a full-time paid employee. Help me, please.